Welcome back, folks. Mr. Denton here. I'm going to take you guys through probably about 10 or 15 minute slideshow here, just to kind of introduce you to some things that you're going to be looking at over the next couple days. Fake news is obviously a term that we've all heard at this point. It's out there, it's everywhere. But what is it? I mean, we're going to look at that. But also, it's not just about fake news, it's about you guys evaluating the news and evaluating information in general. You guys live in one of the most interesting and really kind of dangerous times in our history, probably because it's hard to know what's true. And in a democracy in the United States of America, if we don't know what the truth is, it makes it hard for the people to do their job. And that's a pretty important thing. We're faced with things where, there's stuff that's out there that's created that's completely false on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we're being told constantly that we can't trust anything. These, media outlets that have been around for decades or even beyond a century that have been a huge part of our history, we're being told we can't trust them either because all news is, it's fake or whatever else the case may be. So we're going to take a look at that today. And hopefully draw some lines for you and help you to know what to look for. Okay. So like I said, this is going to probably take 10 or 15 minutes. We'll go through it pretty quick. All right. So that first, question to think about there, what's post-truth? Was one of it was like the word of the year by Webster Dictionary last year or the year before that. Some people say we live in a post-truth society where there is no truth, or you get to decide what the truth is for yourself. Everybody's got their own truth and so forth. And that may sound attractive to some folks. Most of us would rather be told that we're right than to be told the truth. And so that's part of human nature. And so all these things that are going on around us kind of take advantage of that and play into that. I have this picture up here because this is a book that I read when I was a kid. And it was one of those choose your own adventure type things where you got to, if you wanted Batman to do this, you turn to this page. If you want Batman to do that, you turn to this page, and you got to kind of choose what Batman did. And then if you didn't like it, well, then you could flip back and you could go somewhere else. And it turned one book into a bunch of books and so on. It was really fun as a little kid to read that. But we can't really operate that way as a society. We can't just, kind of pick whatever truth we want and then expect that things are going to function. Because if we're all picking our own truth and all kind of living in our own universe, we can't even communicate or have discussions with each other, let alone come to compromises and do things America is built on compromise, and it's been built on the truth. And if those things aren't possible, if we can't deliberate and talk to each other and understand that we have differences, but we can meet in the middle somewhere, if that stuff doesn't happen, America's dead, period. We're not America anymore. So that's important to understand. So how did we get here? For the last, couple decades, it's become more and more profitable for the media to throw more opinion at us. And it's more entertaining to turn on the news at night, especially with these 24-hour news networks who are constantly looking for the next story. If you go back to the early 80s and the 70s and before that, there was just the nightly news. It was on for a couple hours every night. Everybody in America tuned in, and for the most part, people came on and just gave you the news, just gave you the facts, and that was it. Well, then 24-hour news comes along, and all of the networks are guilty of this. They've got to fill time, and they've got to sell commercials, and so that doesn't mean that they're just giving you a bunch of fake stuff. That it's not fake news, but there's a lot of news, and it's mixed with a lot of opinion and a lot of things like that, because people would rather tune in and watch people with different opinions argue back and forth with each other, or get fired up and rant about things than just sit and listen to someone read the news. And they figured out that's profitable, and so they that's how they do things. And the thing is they haven't done a very good job of putting out there or telling us this is fact, this is opinion. And we've not done a good job of training ourselves to recognize the difference between fact and opinion. A lot of people just believe my opinion is a fact in some ways, or the people that I like, their opinions are facts. That's not the case. Okay, we have to understand the difference between those two things. Um, and then now to make things even more difficult, we have just complete and total fake news. And fake news really isn't a brand new thing either, but the ability to make realistic fake news and to get it out there amongst the masses and create, to have a vehicle like Facebook or something like that where people can share it out to everyone, and before you know it, it's spread like wildfire. That's what makes fake news. Even though it's not new, it's more dangerous now than it has ever been. So that's something that we have to deal with. And again, it's not just that we don't know if we can trust some of the stuff that's right in front of us, or that we're being influenced by fake news. We are, a lot of us are, but it's also, this fake news term has been used by politicians to label news sources that they just think are unfavorable to them. Or, if someone prints a news story, if it makes them look bad, whether it's true or not, they're going to label it fake news now, a lot of them, because they know that their followers are going to take their word for it. They're not going to fact check it. And that's made things difficult as well. Okay. All right. So we're going to skip that right now. And one of the reasons why it's such a struggle for us to differentiate between fact, opinion, fake news, all that kind of stuff, is because it's hard work and it's time consuming. Not very many of us have time, if we see a story on Facebook, to go out and research it and spend a bunch of time before we share it online and share it to somebody else. And again, part of us just says, hey, this is kind of in line with what I think, so I'm going to throw it out there. I don't really care that much if it's true or not. And so that's difficult. And now we have people who've got tools. I mentioned this in class, but this video right here, again, I'm going to try and attach this so you guys can watch it for yourselves. But they put on a demonstration of how you can basically take someone like President Obama and you can alter his facial movements and things like that, and basically make him say almost whatever you want him to say. And, you don't even have to give a good impression of these folks anymore, because now they can take someone's voice, run it through a computer for a few minutes, and then you can basically type in what you want that person's voice to say, and it'll say it. It's scary stuff. I mean, it's scary for if world leaders are thrown out there as saying and doing things that they didn't actually do. But it could be used against anyone. It could be used against you or me. That's pretty scary too. And so it's going to get harder. This stuff's called deep fakes, deep fake media. And it's going to, something to keep an eye out for, and something we've been hearing about for a couple of years. And now we're coming up on an election. Don't be surprised if, sometime in the next couple months, something along those lines comes up. All right. So one of the things about fake news is that it's designed to get people to click. Okay. Because most of these things are set up so you don't even have to read the article. If you just go to the website, that person is getting web traffic, and therefore they're getting paid. Okay. So if at all possible, what would be great is if you could get to the point where you can kind of recognize whether or not something's fake before you ever go to the site and read it, and surely before you share it. So there's a couple helpful hints there. The source, okay? Is the source something that you've actually heard of before? And a lot of Americans, are ate up with conspiracy, and they think that there's, this, just like dark, deep state out there, and that, everything that seems like it would be the opposite. They assume that everything is the opposite. Like if it makes sense, well, then it makes too much sense. And so there's got to be a better, explanation for it or whatever. And that's how we get to something like QAnon. QAnon is a bunch of ridiculous, just silly stuff that's being peddled by people online, and they're making money off of it and everything else. And Americans, a lot of times they want to believe that they've got access to, the real thing, the real information that nobody else knows about, that there's really a better explanation for all the things that are going on in the world. And I'll tell you, I was raised on the Kennedy assassination and the conspiracy that a lot of people believe went on there. My dad's been studying that for 30 years, but I will tell you, every time I talk about the Kennedy assassination in history class, not all conspiracies are created equal. Okay. Some of them have facts to back them up. A lot of them don't. Okay. And a lot of stuff that you see out there, especially that with, that you see on the internet today, a lot of it's just, there's no factual basis in it. So you got to be careful about that stuff. And so you want to, is the source something that you've heard of before? Okay. And chances are, if it's not something that you've heard of, then there's a possibility that it's a made up publication. I mean, anybody can create a website. Anybody can publish things on the internet. That doesn't make it legit. You or I could put something on the internet at any time. Doesn't make it legit. Okay. So if I'm not saying that there can't be any other websites out there besides CNN or the Associated Press or whatever the case may be, but that should be a red flag. That should be something that you should be looking at. If it's something you haven't heard of before, go Google it and see, is this a reputable organization? Is it something that has some kind of established reputation, or is it just some guy in his basement making things up? Okay, on the other side of the world, maybe. Look for URLs. In other words, the web address. Is it something that's just got a .com or .net or .gov or something like that you can trust? Or is it something that's crazy? Okay, so they got an example there, droz.com, .diet.co. If it's got a bunch of dots and stuff like that at the end, and it's just got a really, crazy URL, another red flag. And again, neither of these first two definitely makes something fake news, but it should put your radar up a little bit to the point where you probably want to go out. And like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to Google something, okay, and just see if it's a legit site or not. All caps and bad grammar, especially if you see in titles that are all caps with sensational titles and the grammar's not very good, and it says, just things like "you won't believe" or just there's proof of da 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 da. Like I said, all caps with 3 exclamation points. That is not how serious people, serious investigators, and things like that. That's not how they write, and that's not how they title things. Again, does it make it impossible that it's a legit source? No, but it is a gigantic red flag. If you see all caps, bad grammar, bunch of exclamation points, just stuff like that in the title, chances are it's not something you want to be checking out. Okay. And then finally, sources. Okay. Are there any sources? And, there's a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk the last couple of years. President Trump's been critical of news stories that have anonymous sources in them. But one of the things you have to understand is that anonymous sources have been a part of journalism forever. Okay. Richard Nixon, who was caught red-handed doing some horrible things and misusing the office of the president of the United States and was forced to resign, he would have never been caught without journalists publishing news stories and using anonymous sources, because there was someone on the inside who could not reveal who they were, or else they would have been caught and the story would have never gotten out. That's why anonymous sources exist. Now, the thing is you got to understand that might be legit, but when you have stories that are made up that have no sources whatsoever, you can't trace the information that they're giving you back to anything. That's a massive red flag. That means this is something you can't trust. Okay. So the last couple things we want to do here, guys, is just show you a couple of examples. All right. And we'll finish up. This is a textbook version or definition or example, I should say, of fake news. Okay. On Facebook, you would probably see just this graphic here. Super volcano. It's going to blow. Boom. Like I said, lots of exclamation points and, sensational title there. It's going to blow. Scary stuff. Okay. And that's enough to maybe get some folks to click to find out what's going on. Because if that's real, that's scary. It's dangerous. Okay. If you were to go and Google, though, DC Gazette, and it says, hey, best conservative news source, if you were to go look it up, quick Google, right up at the very top, you'd probably find a Wikipedia article on it that's going to tell you this is a garbage site, that they make things up and there's no sources whatsoever. And so the thing is we're here at the page already. I can show you a couple other things that are red flags. Okay. another story that is up here for you to click on if you were to go to that site. Snowflake Comey melts down over Trump's latest comments on FBI. So, that's something you might want to giggle at a little bit. But bottom line is, if you have a news publication calling someone names, calling a snowflake or a loser or a hater or whatever the case may be, it's not a reputable news source. It's not something you should take seriously, because a serious news organization that's concerned with being trusted and putting facts out there so that we can know what's actually going on, they're not going to be calling people names. You shouldn't even be doing that. When you're on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else you're at, calling people names, some people think that's a great way to win an argument. It's a horrible way to win an argument, because here's the thing. The second you call somebody a name, you lost them. They're not going to listen to anything else that you have to say. If you really want to change someone's mind, you got to convince them, hopefully with facts. But you're not convincing anybody of anything if you call them names. So if it's not good enough for you to act that way, it's certainly not good enough for a news publication to act that way. And the thing is, this isn't a news publication. It's garbage. Okay. Another really interesting thing is, and this is how most fake news stories end, and it's just a clear indicator of how little they actually care about anything other than getting you to just go to the site. Okay. I'll take you back here to the initial picture. All right. Super volcano, boom, it's going to blow. I mean, if you see that on Facebook, that's scary stuff, and it's pretty definitive. This thing's going to explode, and a bunch of people are going to die. But now they've got you here, and at the very end of the story, what's it say? Looks like we're safe for now. Okay? Basically what that's saying is, actually, this is a giant nothing burger. Gotcha. Okay? But how many people are probably not even, they're not going to read this very closely at all. And how many people are going to share this? Okay. How many times is this going to get spread around? And it's, like I said, it's fake garbage. This is fake news. This is completely made up. There's nothing to support it whatsoever. And all they care about is getting you to click. And the other thing is that, I know I've been bouncing back and forth a lot here, but there's no there's no author. Okay. If you're on the DC Gazette's site, there's nothing really there that tells you about, when they were established or why you should take them seriously in any way, shape, or form. There's no, like I said, there's no author, none of those things. Okay. So it's pretty thin. We can go to this site and figure out pretty quick that this is crap. All right. But the thing is, to get here, we got to click, we got to go here. They're getting paid. And in a way, we are, just by going here, we are supporting this stuff. Okay. So I'm sorry again for bouncing all the way around. So what do we do? Okay. I always show this one in class, and it always gets laughs. And there's a reason why it gets laughs, because if you're laughing at something, then it's ridiculous. And that means it's not something you should take seriously. So here on Facebook, here's a story, and without clicking on it, without going to the site and supporting these people, we can take a pretty quick look and figure out that this is not something that we should be taking seriously. And it's certainly not something that we should be, that you should be putting on your profile and sharing with other people. You're damaging the United States of America in a way, and you're damaging your community when you share stuff like this. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that you should be a fan of Hillary Clinton or that you should think that she's great or whatever the case may be. If you don't support her, that's absolutely fine. And the same is true if someone doesn't support President Trump. If that's not your candidate, that's okay. Joe Biden, same deal. But what you shouldn't be doing is helping the spread. This stuff is a disease. Okay. If when we go and vote and we're voting on bad information, that is a cancer on our country, on democracy. You shouldn't be a part of that. You shouldn't share these things, even if it's funny, even if you think it's kind of in line with what you think. It's not a crime, but you're doing something to hurt. If you are truly a patriot, if you're someone that believes that you're a patriotic person and you love the United States of America, you should not be sharing stuff like this. Okay. So why? What are the red flags? Well, remember when we were talking about earlier, let's start with just the name of the publication, Conservative Daily Post. Now, hey, you might be conservative, you might be a Republican. That's fine. But that site, there's nothing that rings a bell for you, probably. That's not something you've ever heard of before. At the very least, you should go and before you click on this, go and find out whether or not they're a legit news source. Google them, okay? But also, okay, first of all, what jumps out at you the most about this is probably the picture, okay? It's not a very flattering picture. A legit news publication is probably going to have a picture of Hillary Clinton that is, an official photograph that was taken for the campaign or of her as Secretary of State. There's so many legitimate pictures out there. She's been in public life for decades. You could find anywhere a better picture than this. It's an unflattering picture of her, and there's a reason behind that, because they're not out there to be taken seriously. They're out there to kind of feed your desire, feed people's need. Hillary Clinton was extremely unpopular, okay? So they're playing into that. If a publication is trying to play into that, then they shouldn't probably be taken seriously. You look at the title, evidence in all caps. Hillary Clinton, or Hillary, they don't even say her last name, another red flag. Now confirmed to have Kuru disease from cannibalism. Parentheses, all caps, proof. Okay. That's, like I said, all caps, not great grammar, completely ridiculous title there. I'm guaranteeing you this got shared hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. And it's just absolutely, obviously ridiculous. Okay. And again, if you are a patriot, if you love the United States of America, you should not be sharing stuff like this, period. Okay. And I don't care who the candidate is, and I don't care who you support. Don't care if it's about Biden or Trump or Mike Pence or Hillary or anybody. This stuff is bad. And, and we shouldn't be spreading it, and we shouldn't be supporting people that are doing this, that are trying to basically take advantage of people and take advantage of our country for their own personal benefit. Okay. All right. So we'll close this out just by looking at bias. Okay. And so this is important too. Fact news is a thing. Bias is also a thing, and it's something that we have to be on the lookout for, but it's also something that we have to understand that bias doesn't equal fake news. Opinions don't equal fake news. Opinions are actually extremely important to America, okay? Because, you can go all the way back to the American Revolution. One of the most important writings from that time, the most read thing that was published during the Revolutionary period, and one of the most, just read things in the history of the United States period, is a pamphlet. It was called Common Sense by Thomas Paine, if you remember your U.S. history. Super influential, super important thing that was written that, pushed us towards the revolution and to becoming the United States of America. It was full of opinions, okay? Opinions matter. Experts' opinions especially matter. We should look to our leaders. That's why they're leaders, because we care and we value what they think. All right. But we need to be able to tell the difference between what's fake and what's true, and what's fact and what's opinion. Okay. So a lot of times, like I said, politicians, they like to point at, publications that have been around sometimes, in some cases, for, over 100 years. We talk about the New York Times and places like that. But if a politician thinks that the news story is not fair to them, or even if it's just not favorable to them, if they think they don't like the way it makes them look, even if the stuff in there is mostly factual, they label it fake news. Okay? Just because a politician doesn't like something doesn't make it fake. Something's fake because it's fake, period. Okay? And like I said, opinion and bias exists in everything, because human beings, anything that human beings create, it's going to have bias in it. Okay. So some things to keep in mind there, and then also some helpful tools, PolitiFact, factcheck.org, Snopes, really great resources. If you're looking at something and you're not sure if it's legit or not, most of these, just about anything that's out there that a politician says, or that is like something that's getting passed around on Facebook or whatever, can be found in Snopes. Great resources, and make it pretty quick to go and find answers. Okay. So I believe that's it. Okay. If you have any questions about this, let me know. But this is going to kind of, like I said, be an introduction to several things that we're going to do over the next couple of days, and then also throughout the rest of the term. All right. So holler at me with questions. Appreciate you taking a look at this and listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.